Meet The Lot, native token of Lukki Exchange and the most potential tool for investing this year. Trade now on P2B, B2B and Lukki.io.
跟他一起对谈的 Fireside Chat 的这位呢，刚刚大家已经在台上看过他了，他是 Alex 刘，他是 MyCoin 还有 Amis 的创办人。那接下来呢，他们的这个 topic 很有趣，叫 Lay of the Land: A Chat on Crypto with Charlie Lee。大家应该可以把握这个难得的机会。如果有现场的问题的话呢，也试着可以跟台上的 Charlie 还有 Alex 两人一起来互动。那在邀请两位到台上来之前呢，有一个小小的讯息是主办单位想要跟大家稍微致歉的，因为今天来参与的伙伴还有贵宾超乎了我们原来的预期，谢谢大家非常热情，所以可能在中午的点心或者是刚才午茶时间的点心分量稍稍有些不够，如果有一点让您不舒服的地方，主办单位想跟你们致歉，并且呢会谢谢大家的热情参与，之后也会小心更努力的改进。那现在的时间呢，就来邀请 Alex 还有 Charlie 一起到台前来。
So, although the gentleman sitting next to me almost needs no introduction, I'd like to tell everyone how we actually got to know each other. Charlie and I have known each other almost 20 years since his student days at MIT. He came to Stanford to visit his brother Bobby, who was a roommate of mine. And in fact, these two Lee brothers are the ones who were responsible for getting me into this whole cryptocurrency phenomenon. So Charlie spends a few months here, here in Taiwan every year, and as such, over the last few years has watched the local cryptocurrency scene develop. And I will end the session by asking for his observations on that. But first, I want to turn the clock back to 2011, April of that year, at which time Charlie discovered this phenomenon called Bitcoin. Sometime later that year, he launched his own version of Bitcoin, subsequently known as Litecoin. But actually, a little known part of that history is that before Litecoin, there was something else. And so this something else was called Fairbricks. I'll ask Charlie to describe a bit about the design goals of Fairbricks and why it ultimately didn't take off like Litecoin did. So Charlie, tell us about Fairbricks.
Well, I guess I'll start from the beginning. I found out about Bitcoin in April of 2011. And I think like most of you, when you first find out about Bitcoin, you kind of get mesmerized by like this new thing, right? That has so much potential. And right soon after I found out about Bitcoin, I basically spent like 24/7 like reading up on Bitcoin. And the amazing thing back then was the community was so small that I can pretty much read up everything written about Bitcoin on the Bitcoin Talk forum, like every single thing, every single topic. So I basically started doing like mining, and even back then there was like investing Bitcoin into these scammy things, similar to ICO these days. And then in July, August, September timeframe, there was this altcoin kind of craze. I mean, back then it was like only about a dozen or so altcoins. The thing about all these altcoins launched back then was that they were all created by people who pre-mined a lot of coins. So they mined a lot of coins for themselves, launched the coin, and tried to promote it. And if the coin became successful, then they would make a lot of money. So back then there was a coin called Tenebricks, which was the first coin that uses the script mining algorithm. And the problem with Tenebricks is the creator pre-mined 7 million coins for himself. So there was this initiative to push for something called Fairbricks, which is exactly like a fork of Tenebricks, but with zero pre-mine. So this was a coin that I initially started working on because I'm a software engineer, so I understood the code, and it was fairly easy for me to create Fairbricks from Tenebricks. The problem was to do something different, and that's when the idea of Litecoin came about, to create something that is very, very similar to Bitcoin, so not to change anything that didn't need to be changed. Keep it close to Bitcoin, but just tweak a few things and use the script mining algorithm. The main reason why I decided to use script is because I wanted something that didn't compete with Bitcoin for miners. And so GPUs were mining Bitcoin, and you can use your CPU to mine Litecoin. So it was very complementary to Bitcoin.
So, I mean, in using the script mining algorithm, it was much harder for GPUs to mine them, and as such, everybody should be using CPUs. And in some ways, this would bring you closer to the original one CPU, one vote ethos of Bitcoin. So 7 years in, are we there? I mean, or has it really gone the centralized mining way?
Well, what I've known all along is that the initial community of users were miners, just like Bitcoin. So people who mine Litecoin would evangelize it, would support it and talk to people and convince others to support it. So it was important for people to be able to mine the coin, at least initially. And then as we saw that when Bitcoin moved to ASICs, Litecoin moved to GPUs. So it was a natural transition where all the GPUs that were previously mining Bitcoin turned to mining Litecoin. So it was actually just a fortunate timing for that to happen. And now Litecoin is mined predominantly by ASICs. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think ASICs really help with the security of the coin. And it's true that it's a little bit less decentralized in terms of ASIC manufacturers. But I think over time, over the next few years, it'll become more and more decentralized.
Okay, so that's on the topic of decentralization. But how about on the topic of daily use? The idea in reducing the block times was that it would be faster settlement. It would be,
Yeah, so Litecoin, a lot of people use Litecoin to transfer between exchanges. It's a good trading pair with Bitcoin, and because of how fast the confirmations are, it's very useful when people want to move money. So it's been quite successful, but in the grand scheme of things, we're still very early. Like the end goal is that you can use cryptocurrency to buy things, right? To spend it everywhere. And we're not there yet. I think Bitcoin, Litecoin, I mean, it's still mostly just a speculative asset. But I think give it some time to become more and more useful as payments. And I'm also really looking forward to Lightning Network helping Bitcoin and Litecoin scale.
Okay. So one sentiment I've heard from you over the years, but also echoed by people like Roger Ver and even Craig Wright from the Bitcoin Cash camp, is that the token is really inseparable from the network, that you really need to be an active participant in token holding or trading for you to be properly incentivized to maintain the network. Now, you famously earlier this year divested yourself of all Litecoin holdings. So how does that affect your ability to steer Litecoin's direction, if at all?
Yeah, I think you're talking about like the comment about me not having any skin in the game, right? So to a lot of people, like because I don't hold, I still hold a little bit of Litecoin. I'm just not invested in it. I have a little bit that I spend with it, but like the daily price movements doesn't affect me much at all financially. So to some people, they think that because I don't have any skin in the game, so to speak, I have no incentives to kind of keep working on Litecoin. But from my point of view, that's not the case, right? I've been spending like since I left Coinbase, I pretty much work on Litecoin the whole time, and I'll continue working on Litecoin because it's something I created, and if Litecoin succeeds, it's about pride and legacy, right? So to me, I have more skin in the game than everyone else. So it's not matter that much. I'm spending all my time on it, and time is much more valuable to me than money, so.
I wish I could say that. Okay, a little bit more on the sort of token versus network issue. I mean, if we do look at the majority of token issuances now, they occur on pre-existing blockchains like Ethereum, which have their own native token. What is your opinion on that? I mean, you just now mentioned that most tokens are scams, but what about the basic philosophy here? Is it possible to have essentially a platform for very successful token issuance that have that have real use cases with some separation between that and the underlying token and blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, Ethereum is a very successful platform, definitely for token issuance. I don't think there's anything wrong with token issuance per se. The problem is people are conflating like token being useful versus token being used for fundraising. So it's very easy to raise funds with token and promising the world to people buying the token because it's on Ethereum, so you can potentially become a utility token with a lot of complicated smart contracts involved, right? So you can promise a lot with a token on Ethereum. The reality is that most of these tokens are just tokens. They don't really represent shares of the company. They don't represent anything. In the end, it's just about a means of raising money. And I think the problem with that is the incentives won't be aligned, and all these companies will fail because they don't have incentive to keep working on it once they have the money. So I personally don't really like ICOs that much. I don't touch them. I don't buy them. But there's definitely use cases for certain things, right? I definitely think that some of these tokens companies are creating could be quite useful in the future where they represent real value. But I want to separate that from like raising money.
Fair enough. So your brother, up until this year, operated an exchange on the mainland. You yourself held senior positions at a US-based exchange, and you come to Taiwan often enough to know what's going on here. Could you compare and contrast, between these three geographies, but ultimately at the end of the day, kind of share your insights on what we could be doing better, or what opportunities lie ahead of us here in Taiwan?
Yeah. So it's quite unfortunate that the Chinese government has cracked down on Bitcoin exchanges in China. So my brother was forced to shut down his exchange. And in the US, I think regulation is still really hard to crack. You still have to get like money transmitter licenses from 40 some states. So it's tough for exchanges to get started. And what I'd like to see in Taiwan is for I guess for the government to embrace blockchain and to have kind of a light touch so that, yes, exchanges need to be regulated. Yes, you need to protect the users from shady exchanges that can just shut down and take all your money. But then don't make it so hard for exchange and to thrive in Taiwan. And I think one of the key things is like being able to work with banks. So I remember 4 years ago, I came here to Taiwan kind of representing Coinbase to try to help Coinbase find a bank account. And it was really hard. Even for a company like Coinbase, we just couldn't find bank accounts, right? And that's tough for blockchain exchanges or just companies working with cryptocurrencies. Without a bank account, it's really hard to do much. So I think it needs to come from like the central bank of Taiwan to have like kind of be more open to it, so that the banks would actually be willing to work with crypto exchanges and not be afraid of getting punished from central banking.
Okay, I think that's all the time we have for today. So thank you very much for your thoughts, Charlie, and looking forward to having you back here every summer.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Alice and Charlie.